Hey, not to brag, but I just created these awesome 3D printed 3D pen sunglasses at the Auaha Makerspace. Why don't you watch the rest of the tutorial to find out how. So people often ask, what is the use of a 3D pen? Like, why would you actually want to use one? There's a few reasons. Well, first of all, creating stuff with 3D pens is fun and it's pretty cool. The second reason is that we can actually repair broken 3D models with 3D pens, and we'll show you more on that later. And the last reason is probably the most useful, and that is prototyping designs. If you can design something on paper, that's pretty cool. You can sort of understand how it might look. But if you can design it with a 3D pen, you can physically hold that design and figure out if it's worth investing more time into designing the real version of it. So people will often use 3D pens to design these rapid prototypes before taking a concept into a full 3D production software. There's a few things we're going to need for this project. Starting with, we're going to be using a Protech 3D pen designed for PLA. We've also got this charger cable, which I can get plugged in now. In terms of consumables, we'll be needing some PLA. I have this green PLA plastic filament, which I'll be loading into this 3D pen in a moment. And the final thing we're going to need is some form of template. Technically, you don't need this part. You can design anything you want on a flat surface, but it always helps to have a design going. Here's my Protech 3D pen. You can see it's designed for PLA use. There's several buttons on them, and we'll go over them in order of importance. First of all, let's start by plugging in the 3D pen. And you can see our on-screen display now showing our temperatures. At this point, I'm going to start by setting my temperature range. I can do this by using this minus symbol, and I just want to target a temperature of 190 degrees. The pen is relatively safe at this point as it is not currently heating up, but once I push this button here, you can see that we start to increase our current temperature towards our target temperature. It's important to keep my fingers clear of the nozzle at this point as it begins to get very, very hot. In fact, you can see the temperature it's getting to right here. If I touch this, it will definitely burn, and that would not be pleasant. So we will just wait until it reaches that temperature, and then we can begin loading our filament. You can now see we've reached our target temperature, and it's time to load in our filament. Find the end of your filament and load it into the small hole above the charger cable. By pushing it into this hole, we can begin to load it by pushing on this forwards button here. I'm also going to apply just a small amount of pressure with my fingers, loading this filament in. And we'll just wait until we start to see some filament extruding out of the tip of the nozzle. Here we have some filament extruding out of the nozzle. You can see it starts with a strange color that looks like some sort of white. That's actually because there was a small amount of filament still left in this before I loaded it with my new filament. This is still semi-molten at this point, and it's quite warm, but not too warm to touch. This is actually going to be waste, and I'm just going to wipe the nozzle tip with it to get myself nice and ready for my design. Using the 3D pen is really easy. All we need to do is push this forwards button, and that will extrude the filament. And then as you can see, as I move my pen around, the filament is extruding. Now there is a bit of a knack to this. As you can see, I'm holding it a little bit far off the surface, and this is not actually getting the result I'm after. Okay, so really, you want the pen tip to be touching the surface almost, just like this. There we go. You can see that's doing a lot better. I find it easiest to use my pinky finger to sort of hold the pen up off the surface ever so slightly. Okay, so I've created a nice, almost circular shape. I'm just going to demonstrate, if I was going to create like an eye or something like that. Ooh, there we go. Let's say that this is an eye. Very good. There is one common mistake that people make with these 3D pens. Well, once it's dry, once it's hardened, I can pick this up, right? But unfortunately, this part has been left behind. So this is a common mistake I see, is people creating multiple parts and expecting them to stay stuck together. If you want these to be stuck together, you do need to connect them. Okay, so we can do something like this. And this is going to be really relevant when we get to our next example project, creating some glasses. All right. So now that that's dry, I should be able to pick that up and it should all stay intact. There's one more common problem that people might encounter while using the 3D pens, and that is accidentally bumping the cable while you're working. If the cable falls out, it's pretty easy to get it going again. You just push it back in and push this forwards button once again to begin reheating to our target temperature. Let's move on to our example project. I'm going to create this awesome pair of sunglasses, and I'm just going to pick any point to start with and start tracing around my image. It really helps to take your time with this. As you can see, at some points if I rush through, it can be hard to follow the lines exactly. As you can see, I've been adding a small wireframe throughout the interior of my design, and that's just to ensure I have some form of rigidity throughout the structure. Otherwise, it would be very flimsy and might just not resemble the glasses that I'm after. So you could even go all the way and fill this in entirely, but that will take up a lot of filament. So it's up to you. In this case, I'm just going to create some form of structure like this. So I've finished my design. However, there might still be some more work to do. So at this point, what I tend to do is place my 3D pen down where I know it will be safe, making sure that the tip is not contacting any surfaces. You can also remove the cord if you're worried, but I'm going to go ahead and peel off my design, making sure that it all comes off in one piece. There we go. And my two arms of the sunglasses as well. You can see, now that I've got them peeled off, they're kind of semi-attached by this small amount of stringy stuff. So this is actually a pretty normal part of 3D pen use. I can simply pull these apart and now I have them separated. Often what I'll do is I'll go through with some small clippers and just remove these small pieces and put them in our PLA recycling bin as well. Taking the time to remove the stringy bits from your 3D printed designs can take a while, but it's well worth it to improve the overall look. Now we have our three separate pieces, and we're going to talk about the other use of a 3D pen, which is welding. We can use welding to connect these three parts to turn them into a three-dimensional design. Now, in the time that it took for me to cut off all these stringy bits, you can see the 3D pen automatically paused its heating. So I've just pushed this forward button once again to reheat it up to the target temperature. I've reached my target temperature now, and I'm going to get set up for welding. Now, it's very important to leave one of the pieces flat, and we'll find the other piece and put it in place exactly where we want it. Make sure it's oriented the correct direction. For example, if I attach it like this, it's going to be stuck there and I will be probably quite regretful. So I'm going to make sure it's attached in the correct orientation. I'll bring over my 3D pen, and in this case I'm just going to push to get a very small ball of 3D filament extruded and just push it down on one of the corners. The nozzle itself is actually hot enough that it will fuse the two parts together with very little filament being used to do this. That being said, if you want to, you can use as much filament to do this as you want. Now this is still semi-molten at this point. I'm going to move my 3D pen to the side and just hold this in place and sort of push these things together and wait till it cools down. You can see that in this case, I've managed to achieve a right angle with the sunglasses main frame and the arm coming straight up away from it. Let's move on and attach the other side. So once again, making sure it's oriented correctly, I'm just going to get a small ball of filament extruding, hold this in place, and push that small ball in between. we want at least 2 anchor points. So I've attached the top end. Don't worry if it falls over like this. It's still quite warm, so it should be okay. You can move around a little bit, and we'll attach the bottom point, getting a small ball of filament and just pushing it in between the two. I'm also going to attach in between. Now I'll just hold these two pieces together and just wait until that cools down. And I know you guys are all going crazy waiting to see our final creation. So let's do a test modeling of it. Very smart. And as an extra additional tip for experts, you can actually use this fusing process to repair broken 3D printed models. For example, you can see I've got this awesome dragon here that has these nice antlers that have just been bumped off at some stage. But not to worry, we can grab a similar colored filament and just like I was doing with those sunglasses, I can put this piece in place, get a small amount of filament extruded. Let's just wipe off the blob of death that's forming there. I like to keep my nozzle nice and clean, and we'll just come in here and start to fuse these two pieces together. Awesome, and I'm just pushing it into place as it's still semi-molten, at least slightly warm, and allows me to get it sitting just how I want. Now, there's one big bonus of using a 3D pen over using something like super glue. These parts are literally fused together. The plastic is melted into one piece, whereas super glue would create a layer of another material between the two. So this will actually hold a lot better over time, especially if something like this was to fall off the table and smack onto the floor. This one is going to last a lot better. Guess what? We've finished our mahi now, and I'm going to go ahead and show you guys how to finish up with a 3D pen creation. Starting with, we're going to unload our filament. So make sure your nozzle is heated up to the target temperature, and we're going to push this other button here, the unload button. While pushing that button, I'm just going to apply a small amount of pressure, pulling this filament in this direction, and we'll wait until it comes clear. And pop, there we go, we've got the filament clear. Now, we're also going to wipe off the little bit that's left on the end, just onto a piece of scrap like this. And the last thing we're going to do is we're going to take all of our filament waste, collect it up, and place it into one of our filament recycling boxes, such as this one from my 3D printer over here. Thank you for watching this tutorial on 3D pens. Please leave us a comment on what you'd like to learn next from the Auaha Makerspace. Once again, we enjoy having you guys with us, and we can't wait to see you at Auaha Makerspace sometime soon. Cheers.